The origin of humans. You see, the origin of humanity started with a very black woman named Lucy. Now, who was Lucy? If this is the first time you're coming to my page, Ebenezer Heru, congratulations. You are highly welcome to my school of learning. I am Ebenezer Heru, the voice of your untold African history. Now, when archaeologists and anthropologists were looking for the remains or the oldest bones of man, they went to Europe, Australia, and Asia. They could not find the oldest bones of man. It was until they came to Africa, precisely East Africa, in Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Kenya, they discovered the oldest bones of man, dated over 3.2 million years old. And they also discovered that the first Homo sapiens sapient was a very black woman, and she was named Lucy by these archaeologists and anthropologists. This black woman named Lucy bore humanity. That is to say, all human beings now living on earth came from the womb of a black woman who lived around 140,000 to 200,000 years ago. You see, during this time, there were no human beings in Europe, in Asia, or in Australia. The only place where humans were in existence was in Africa, precisely in East Africa. Now, around 55,000 years ago, black African women were the first to migrate out of Africa to different parts of the world. In Europe, the Africans who migrated there were caught in the ice, and this was the origin of white people. I know a lot of people want to know the origin of how white people came into existence. Pay attention, because you will learn a lot. The white people started existing in the Ice Age, a period of high level of cold in Europe, known as the Ice Age. Now, as these Africans who migrated from Africa adapted to the ice environment, they started dropping pigmentation. That is, they started dropping melanin, because there was not enough sun in the place we call Europe today to increase their blackness or melanin, which means they started turning from black to white, from Africoid to Caucasoid. They became the first white Europeans due to centuries of adaptation in the ice. Hundreds of years in the ice made them to grow long hair to prevent their neck from cold. And this also made them to start having narrow nose. I also need us to understand that before they migrated to the ice environment, which we call Europe today, there was no human being in Europe. What existed in Europe were animals inhabiting in the ice environment in Europe. Now, the African albinos who were dying easily in Africa because they lacked enough melanin to protect them from the hotness of the sun became the first pink Europeans who took advantage of the ice environment because there was no enough sun in Europe as it was in Africa. In Africa, these African albinos were dying like chicken because they don't have enough melanin to protect them from the hotness of the sun. Also in Africa, during this time, there was no long hair follicle because hair need to be short to allow heat to pass through the neck. It was until they migrated to Europe in the Ice Age, they started growing long hair to protect their neck from cold. You see, it was not all blacks who migrated from Africa during the Ice Age to Europe who were affected by the European ice. Not all of them dropped melanin or pigmentation, which was why when Britain was invaded by Rome around 55 BCE, they saw black people who were native to Britain. This was before slave trade and colonialism. In fact, the first Africans to live in Europe, or the first Europeans who were very black, were known as the Grimadis. You can research it. In Asia, the first migration of Africans from Africa to Asia started around 65,000 years ago. In China, for instance, the first emperor or king of China was a very black man named Fu His, who reigned from 2953 BCE to 2383 BCE. He and his African brothers and sisters created the first royal dynasty in China, popularly known as the Chang Dynasty, which lasted from 1766 BCE to 1027 BCE. They were the ones who introduced the first political, social, and cultural civilization in China. These black Chinese migrated from East Africa around 65,000 years ago during the Ice Age. In Japan, the first people to live there were also very black. Around 35,000 years ago, blacks who called themselves Jomons migrated from Africa and took the route that led them to the place we call Japan today. In Mesopotamia, that is in Sumeria and Babylon, which is present-day Iraq, the founder of Sumer was Nimrod, and Nimrod was a very black man from the land of Kush, and Kush is present-day Sudan and Ethiopia. Lovers of knowledge and people of the sun, the black race started civilization in every nook and cranny of the earth. In Sumeria, which is present-day Iraq, everyone who lived there during this time were very black before white Europeans, who were previously black, migrated to live in Sumeria, and the place became mixed race. In fact, if Abraham existed as they claimed in their Jewish folklore, then he would be very black because he was born in a city in Sumeria, but migrated to the land of Canaan, which is present-day Israel, where he and his people were persecuted and enslaved by a people known as the Hittites. From the land of Canaan, the people you call Jews or Israelites migrated to Egypt. In Egypt, they came with nothing. There was no Hebrew language. There was no religion known as Judaism. There was no book of Genesis. There was no book of Exodus. And there was no Adam and Eve story. When they came, they were accepted into the African Egyptian mystery system, where they were educated by the African Egyptians as students. This was during the Egyptian 13th dynasty, when the Hyksos from Asia invaded Egypt in 1675 BCE and ruled a part of Egypt for 108 years. The people you call Israelites were not enslaved in Egypt, as they told us in the book of Exodus. They were enslaved in the land of Canaan, which is present-day Israel. They ran out of the land of Canaan and came to seek shelter from the black people in Africa, Ethiopia, and in Sudan, where they were accepted into the African mystery schools of black people in Africa. They were educated, well-fed, and around the period of 700 BCE, they left Africa with a population of 600,000. They copied the 42 negative confessions of an Egyptian Neteru known as Mahat. Mahat is the Egyptian nature for law, order, justice, and balance. They copied 10 from the 42 laws of Mahat, and they called it the 10 Commandments. And this is the origin of the 10 Commandments. They started writing their books. The first book they wrote was not the book of Genesis as they told us, but the book of Exodus, where they lied that they were enslaved in Africa, in Egypt. Meanwhile, there is nowhere in Egyptian history where a people known as the Israelites were enslaved. They copied the Egyptian African story of Osiris, who was killed by his jealous brother Seth. They copied this story to write their story of Cain and Abel. And this is the origin of Cain and Abel. The golden calf. The golden calf they worshipped after they left Egypt. Remember, they did not come to Egypt as slaves. They came as students. Therefore, the golden calf they worshipped after they left Egypt, not as slaves, but as students, was a very black woman named Hathor or Het Heru, who was symbolized with the head of a bull or a cow face. Her temple is still standing in Egypt in a place called Dendara. I know this knowledge will be so startling to our African brothers and sisters who have been distracted with content on social media that has never improved their lives. Don't be surprised, lovers of knowledge and people of the sun. This is your African history that they don't want you to know. I am Ebenezer Heru, and I will always teach you that which our government don't want us to know. I will recommend the following books to help you fast and know most of the things I teach. These books are all in soft copy and you can read them very handy. To buy these books, DM me today and secure yours, and you're going to know a lot of your African history. The Untold History of the Black Race and the Fall of African Civilization, The Destruction of Black Civilization, The General History of Africa, and many more that will help you to know more of your untold African history that they will never teach you. I say,